Hi, my name is Andrew Enriquez, and I am a volunteer at the National Museum of the United States Army. So I wanted to volunteer at the museum because I saw the advertisements that were put out in some periodical publications around Fort Belvoir. I was working an active duty job on Fort Belvoir at the time, and I've always loved going to Army museums. Anytime I travel and I'm TDY somewhere, for example, at Fort Bliss, there's an amazing museum. At Fort Hood, pretty much any post you go to, there'll be a museum, and I've done my best to see them all. I'm a big enthusiast. It was a great opportunity to volunteer at this, world-class, state-of-the-art museum, and it has been a real joy so far. So there are so many amazing artifacts at the museum, it's really difficult to pick only one. I think my favorite, though, just because it's a little out of the way, people might not understand the historical significance it has, is actually the city wall flag that we have from China, from when there was a relief mission that went over to relieve members of a number of countries' embassies who had been kept imprisoned in Beijing, in China. And that flag was captured by our element over there. It's a really interesting story, and I think it's something that people, it's history that's not very well known. So I really hope that people, when they walk into the gallery, will take a look at it and kind of, find out more about that story. My favorite part about volunteering at the museum, primarily, honestly, is the chance to interact with these amazing artifacts that we have. It's just mind-blowing, the history of the nation reflected through the artifacts that have been gathered over the years, but also it's the ability to talk to the other volunteers and find out what their Army stories are. Everyone's got a story, and everyone in the Army has an interesting story, I feel like. And there's so many points of commonality between the volunteers meeting perhaps patrons who can actually tell them something about the artifacts that are there, or can share a story that's relatable in some way. One story that's not particularly well known is very near and dear to my heart. When I first came to Fort Belvoir, it was to audition for the 2010 United States Army Soldier Show, which was a touring show, Broadway style, 90-minute high energy. It was entertainment for the soldier by the soldier. So all of the entertainers were, currently serving Army personnel. And that show's lineage goes all the way back to World War I, when Irving Berlin created the show as a fundraiser. God Bless America was written for the very first show of the U.S. Army Soldier Show. Ironically, it was cut because they thought it was too depressing and down tempo. So there's a little tidbit, but it was brought back in World War II. So I auditioned for the 2010 Army Soldier Show. Before I had joined the Army, or the Army National Guard, I was a ballet dancer. So it was, how I got in was kind of a strange story, actually. I was a Better Opportunities for Single Soldiers, a program volunteer at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. And nobody from my company had signed up for a talent show that we were doing. So my sergeant major said, sign yourself up. And I said, I can't really do anything, Sergeant Major. All I can do is dance a little bit. So the day of the talent show came, and I tried to shrink into the background, but the Sergeant Major called me out on the microphone, on the public address. So for an audience of soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, everyone from sergeant's first class to just brand new privates, I danced a traditional ballet piece, and I think most people were kind of taken aback by it, but I was immediately approached by one of the judges afterwards, who said, "Hey, here's my business card. As soon as you're done with training, come and audition for the show." So unfortunately, with the museum closing for the period that it was, I didn't have a lot of shifts that I was able to work to interact with the public. I think it's not a specific story, but it's something that I saw happen with a couple of people. So on the reopening day, I was up on the third floor with the Nisei experience and the Medal of Honor experience exhibit spaces. And one of the things I thought was most interesting about that is you'd see groups come in and they would go over to the exhibit that we have of all of the medals. So the pyramid of honor, has the Medal of Honor at the top, and then all of the different decorations that the Army awards all kind of cascade down from that. So one of the coolest things was seeing people walk up to it, and their children would be like, "Hey, Dad, how many of those medals do you have?" Or even spouses would be like, "How many of those medals do you have?" And so you'd see most people had a pretty good sense of like, oh, I start here at the Bronze Star and kind of work my way down. But one Vietnam veteran stood there for a while actually and just kind of stared at it. He was like, it's so hard to remember. I think I got this one. So it's a really interactive space in a way that you might not expect. So I joined the Army National Guard specifically. My brother had been a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. And my memories of seeing him going away to his annual training every year impacted me very deeply as a preteen. So I would see him, starting his uniform. I would see him getting ready, and the pride that he took in his service and the esprit de corps that he had was always made a big impression on me. So I had been doing a dance career. I had started really late, so I didn't have a great shot at a successful career. And I needed something to do. And so I immediately thought, well, I'm going to join the Marine Corps and be like my brother. And my whole family was like, knowing you, that's probably not the best choice you could make. How about you join a reserve component and you can see how you like it. And if you really like it, you can do it full time. So I kind of begrudgingly agreed and joined the National Guard. And I found that there is so much flexibility within the reserve components of the Army. That it's incredible. I have done 2 tours of the Army Soldier Show. I've done active duty gigs. I've learned French and Chinese just as part of my Army training. And so it's been a wild journey. And it's now that I'm looking kind of at the backside of my career, I could not be more excited than to be at the National Museum of the United States Army. Ooh, that's a good one. Being an Army linguist, I've had some really interesting experiences overseas. As a linguist, you have to maintain your language abilities with a minimum of 40 hours of training. It might be 80 hours. I can't remember off the top of my head, but you have to maintain your linguistic abilities. So you'll do immersion programs frequently. And sometimes it's somewhere maybe not as glamorous like Camp Williams, Utah, but sometimes you'll actually be in Lyon, France, or you'll be in China. So I was actually part of the last immersion group that went to China for their language immersion when I was at the Defense Language Institute. So, we spent a month in Beijing at the Civil Aviation Management Institute of China. It was an intensive program. We got to go to Xi'an to see where the terracotta warriors are. It was really, honestly, an amazing experience and something I never thought I would do. I'd say if there's one big takeaway from my experience with the Army, it is that everybody has an interesting story. I think particularly service members have interesting stories. You're always going to run into that service member who, maybe came from an area where they didn't have a lot of different food choices, for example. So when they went to Korea, they discovered that they really liked the Korean food tradition, or maybe they only tried a couple of things, but they like 1 or 2 things. People's deployment experiences are always fantastic, and not where you necessarily experience. I remember someone telling me a story of how they had finagled some way of getting steaks when they were deployed to Iraq, and they had to use pallets to cook them. So the steak was kind of funky, but that was their experience. There are certain points of connection, I think, that will always happen for soldiers that connect with the same types of experiences that our forebears had. You're always going to be stuck somewhere waiting for the next thing to happen. You're always going to have some form of pack on your back at some point. You're always going to have to be willing to take that next step into the unexpected. And along the way, you're going to bond with people, and you're going to learn from people, and you're going to expand your view of the world based through their eyes, based through their shared experiences. So I would say, just really take the time to get to know people, respect everybody, and you're going to be part of an amazing team. I think what I'd most like to hear from visitors, if they approach me at the museum, is what the overall historical context of an artifact is. For example, the Congressional Gold Medal and the Nisei Soldier Experience. The Congressional Gold Medal is very impressive just on its own, but it is an artifact that if you were to look at it, it doesn't tell the whole story. So it's kind of that personal interpretation of where does this fit into the narrative of the Nisei experience? Like, why did it take so long for this to happen? And what are some of the reactions that people had at the time that this medal was awarded? Let me tell you, I think as the museum reopens, as we're starting to get back to some sort of sense of normalcy, I'd say just coming in and seeing the wondrous the exhibit space and the artifacts that we have is totally worth the wait. It is a world-class, state-of-the-art museum. It's mind-blowing on so many levels. You've got Humvee #1. I mean, if you served recently, that alone is mind-blowing. So I'd say just come in and see what we got. You'll be surprised.